I met up with Lisa some time back. Her husband Peter went to prison and was released early to do a special program in Katherine. It was run by an Indigenous healer from Canberra who mostly told stories in a big yarning circle, like in the old days. It made an amazing difference. I hadn't met Peter before, but I was impressed with his sense of purpose and positive approach to things. He is certainly tackling the community problems head on. He started with the young fellas, took them bush for a while with some men from Katherine, and they did similar things to what turned Peter's life around. Got the kids back in school anyway, so that's a good start. Then he started a men's group, just 5 fellas. They started to talk about what can we do to help fellas who were drinking too much and getting violent. They decided to take the men bush for a while. Peter got some money from somewhere and a few fellas from other communities came too. About 15 of them all up. They went bush. Peter talked about his problems with gambling and grog, how it took away any sense of purpose in his life and left him feeling life had no meaning. He felt out of control. That's why he would hit things and hit people. Then he talked about prison, and this led on to the story that changed his life. I can't tell it as good as he did, but I'll try. But first I want you to sit back and relax. Close your eyes if you like, and just concentrate on nothing more than your breathing. Take some deep, deep breaths, then breathe out all that stale air. Feel it going. Another deep breath. Breathe out, that's good. Just feel how good it is to relax. Prison is like a big swamp. You can't get around and you can't get out. Nowhere safe, nowhere to stand firm. You try, but that stinking oozy mud just keeps you stuck. Nowhere to stand upright. The mud pokes up between your toes like dog shit. You can't trust anyone. It's stinking lonely. Some people care, but not many, and visits are far too short. Yeah, I hate prisons, Peter said, and I hate swamps. We used to go looking for long-necked turtles in the swamp. Goose eggs too. Watching for crocs all the time, crocs and snakes. I don't know which is worse. Both of them are bad news. Then they let me out early to do a program in Katherine. That's where I heard this story. It was a long time ago and a long way from here, but it's like yesterday. And it's like where we are just now. And a big eastern brown snake, you know what they are? They strike and they bite. Everyone is afraid of them and keep out of their way, even their mate and the little fellas. That's why they're nearly always on their own, dangerous and lonely. Nobody likes them. Well, one day this big brown snake was in the swamp looking for eggs. He was not looking for trouble, but trouble found him. It sure did. Somehow the reeds wrapped themselves around his scales and held on no matter what the big snake, he couldn't get free. The harder he tried, the tighter those reeds hung on. He was a goner for sure, tired and beaten. He was almost ready to give up when all of a sudden he heard someone talking. A deep voice, one of those voices where you wish he could start singing. If a didgeridoo could talk, it would sound just like that. That's strange, he thought. I'm not one to listen to anyone, deep voice or whatever. I just do what I do. I don't need anyone telling me what to do, the big old snake said. But somehow he sort of listened. Well, you see, he was caught, couldn't do anything, couldn't go anywhere. well and truly tangled in those rotten reeds. The voice went on. The big old brown snake could feel it as much as hear it. "Do things differently and you will be free," said the voice, over and over again. It had an authority about it. It was though it was coming from someplace deep. It puzzled the snake, but he didn't ignore it. He began to wonder what he could do instead of fighting to be free. And the more he wondered, the less he struggled. For thinking took as much effort as fighting. And tired as he was, he couldn't do both. So he just listened. And then an amazing thing happened. The reeds started to let go. First around his head, then his body, and finally at this stage the big old brown snake was completely relaxed and he was able to move again. Oh, it felt so good. He forgot about the voice, didn't even bother where it came from, and he headed for the edge as fast as he could. Over to the edge of the swamp, over near the long grass. And nobody's quite clear how this happened, but he didn't get there. Standing on the edge of the swamp was a big old bullfrog. Now normally the big brown snake would have just struck it in a flash, bullfrog gone, but the bullfrog was talking. What's more, it was the same deep voice that talked in the swamp. The big brown snake was puzzled and he listened. The bullfrog said, "You got free by not fighting, but you are not really free even if you're not in the swamp and no reeds around you. It will be somewhere and something else that will hold you back. You will be fighting and lonely and trapped again if you don't learn the lesson of the swamp." For the big old brown snake, it felt very strange talking to the bullfrog instead of eating it. But this whole thing was very strange, even confusing. But somehow it was worth paying attention to, for after all, he was a goner in the swamp and now he was free. Well, almost. "So what is the lesson of the swamp?" he asked. The bullfrog just sat there. You know how they do, fatty legs up beside their belly, big head with no neck and eyes looking straight at you, straight through you. "The lesson of the swamp," said the bullfrog slowly, "is when you fight the wrong thing, you never get out of the swamp. Some never get out and die there. Some just stay alive by stuff floating nearby. And some, not many, and this is you, Mr. Eastern Brown Snake, are lucky enough to listen to ancient wisdom. Do things differently and you will be free. But as I say, some get out of the swamp and get tangled somewhere else by something that holds them just as tight. They're not free at all. And I am afraid that will be you, Mr. Eastern Brown Snake, unless you understand the lesson of the swamp. Doing things differently is not just to get you out of that swamp, it is for your life to change so you don't get tangled with anything else, so you can live free like you were meant to live." The big brown's head was raised now, and it could have struck that bullfrog, but it didn't. The bullfrog was not afraid and said, its big eyes looking right through the snake's head, "Well done, Mr. Eastern Brown Snake." And before the snake could work out what he had done well, the bullfrog continued, "You could have struck me, but you didn't. That's different. You could have eaten me and be hungry again tomorrow, but you are learning stuff that can work for you, stuff that can keep you free for the rest of your life. How good is that?" The snake didn't know what to say. This was all too much. Talking with a bullfrog instead of eating it. A bullfrog of all things, what would it know? It was weird, but the bullfrog seemed to know what the snake was thinking, because it said, "You may wonder how I know these things, Mr. Snake," his belly puffing up a bit. Well, I can breathe underwater. There the kookaburras can't get me. And I can live in the long grass just as well. There the barramundi can't get me. I can't strike like you can, but I live free and help my mate and teach my little fellas, tadpoles, to do the same thing. That's what freedom is for. Nothing to tangle me and hold me down. I skim over the mud without getting stuck and between the reeds without getting tangled. I live my life without fighting. I don't need to strike anything to be a proud bullfrog. When the bullfrog saw the snake was still listening, he continued, I know you really want to be free. That's why I helped you out of the swamp. To help you live free, to have your mate like you and be by your side, and your little ones look up to you as you stand proud with the dignity of an ancient warrior. This comes from knowing when to fight and when to relax, to know what to strike and to what to let go. It's like breathing underwater. You have to try it, for it's the only way you can stay free, the bullfrog said. When you feel like fighting, hold your breath. It'll give you time to work out, is this the time to fight or relax? You will have found that fighting hurts people and drives them away from you. Relaxing, they gather round you. When you feel like striking, hold your breath. It will give you time to work out whether to strike or let go. You will find striking porn, grog and ganja brings out the noble warrior heart, and when you do, other men will respect you because everyone admires courage and bravery. They will gather beside you and shoulder to shoulder you will strike and kill, for it's a proper fight. The mob gets free of stinking mud and stuff that holds them down, reeds that grip and tangle. Everyone wins and the bad stuff dies. Fight the wrong thing and you'll never get free. That's the lesson of the swamp.